Hello, welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He is at Beachhead50. Josh Shepardson talking about tonight's huge Monday slate. We've had some pretty weak Monday slates at times this year, but this is one of the better ones we've seen, and a lot of good pitching options, not a lot of great ones, depending on your subjective, I guess. But not a lot of guys that just seem like a slam dunk, but a lot of guys you feel pretty good about. So starting there at the top, you've got Jake Arrieta against Cleveland. This team that got shut down by Justin Verlander the other day, much to the chagrin of people like me who played some Cleveland bats waiting for the implosion. But, I mean, Arrieta's been solid as usual, like he was last year. He's pitching at least 6 innings pretty much every game, getting 7 to 8 strikeouts. I mean, this is not a great Cleveland offense. I mean, he's definitely beatable, though, so I think, I don't know, he's on the borderline for me. I feel like maybe more GPP because they do have some good big bats that could punish him in that ballpark. But I wouldn't blame you if you used him in cash, though.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning in favor of GPPs as opposed to cash games. I think we've got enough solid options that are bigger betting favorites to roll with those guys in cash games. But in GPPs, few have the strikeout upside on this slate that Arrieta does. As you said, Cleveland's a good offense. They rank in the top 10 in WOBA and top 5 in WRC plus against righties this year. But they are going to a National League park, so he's going to get to face Trevor Bauer a couple times in the lineup, which is always a plus. No designated hitter. Probably will get a pinch hitter at some point, so you don't get those 3 at-bats against a pitcher, but you take the 2, and then a guy coming off the bench that hasn't swung the bat all game is a pretty nice alternative. So I do like Arrieta in GPPs, does have a nice strikeout upside, is a batting favorite, so you do expect him to at least be in the mix for a win. My favorite cash games arm is Dallas Keuchel, the second most expensive arm on the slate. Gets a Rockies team that strikes out more than any other against left-handed pitchers this year, ranking the bottom 5 in WRC plus and bottom 10 in WOBA. So bad offense, not as good on the road either. So I mean, really, all the factors are lining up for Keuchel to mow them down quite often tonight. My second favorite cash games arm, and I'm going to probably sprinkle some of him in there as well. Another guy that I like in GPPs, and I should add that I do like Keuchel in GPPs. Basically, any game, whether they're a cash game, if they're a cash games arm, they're in play for GPPs tonight as well, because there are so many usable arms. I don't think the ownership is going to be crazy on anyone. It's going to be pretty well split. So basically, if I say I like somebody in GPPs, consider them in cash games, consider them a GPP arm as well. And that applies to Francisco Liriano. Like him a little less than Keuchel in cash games because he does have some control issues on occasion. I would rather roll the dice with a guy like Keuchel who's going to pound the strike zone. But Liriano has a higher strikeout potential because he's a better strikeout pitcher, better strikeout rate than Keuchel this year. Probably has the second highest strikeout potential on the slate behind Arrieta. Toss up between him and Tanaka, I would say. But faces a White Sox lineup that is just lost against left-handed pitching. They are dreadful. They don't hit them by any measure, no matter if you want to use old school batting average, on base percentage, and slugging. If you want to use new stats like WOBA and WRC plus, they all paint the same picture. They all paint the picture of the White Sox being lost against lefties. So I do like Liriano quite a bit. Who else do you like in cash games or GPPs?
I'm on those guys as well. I think Tanaka's probably my favorite tournament option just because people won't be on him, and, you know, there's still that concern that he's not completely healthy, but, I mean, he's looked great over his last couple starts. A guy, probably more of a cash game option, but I don't mind him in tournaments because of his price. John Lackey at home against the Twins. Twins, as we know, a much better offense against lefties, also much better offense at home. So with all those factors there, coming off a terrible performance in Coors, which obviously he gets a pass for every single time. I like him a lot at 8,200. I think I'll be looking that way. And then, of course, you got to consider your boy there that you mentioned. And briefly, Trevor Bauer, another guy coming off a bad start, probably going to drive his ownership down. And we know the Cubs strike out a ton against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, the only other name that I would add, and it's a GPP only play, but it's one that I do like, is opposing Francisco Liriano, and that's Carlos Rodon. This has the makings of a pitcher's duel because both offenses struggle mightily with left-handed pitchers. Rodon, $7,200, has struck out quite a few batters this year. Nice strikeout rate, 40 and 40 innings pitched. So you got to like that. Does have some control issues, which limits him to GPPs only, not a cash games option. He is a fairly sizable underdog with Liriano, sizable betting favorite. So Really, you're hoping that maybe Liriano gets messy, gives up some runs, and that Rodon is locked in the zone, and that slider's sharp, and he's missing bats, because he's certainly capable of doing that. And if he does, $7,200, a nice price tag to allow you to go get some big bats as well.
Yeah, and I'll throw out one more guy also, and I don't like picking on the Giants right now because they have been great against right-handed pitching, but Taijuan Walker is pitching very well recently. 20, 12, and 15 fantasy points his last 3 starts. 8, 7, and 6 Ks. 0, 1, and 2 walks is the encouraging thing, because obviously that's his biggest struggle is walking the ball, walking batters, ironically. So I think at 7,500, he's going to be a guy that's really low owned, because, I mean, you'll probably be picking on him with the Giants or just avoid him because the Giants have been hitting well, and I think that he's going to be a nice sneaky GPP option tonight.
Yeah, and he gets to pitch at pitcher-friendly AT&T Park, which is always a nice benefit. And facing a National League lineup, you won't have to face a designated hitter, so definitely some things working in Walker's favor tonight.
Absolutely. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on over to catcher, where there's options tonight. I like guys like we were talking before the show, right there at that $3,100 to $3,200 range. You've got Matt Wieters against Aaron Harang. You've got Miguel Montero against Trevor Bauer, who has been wild at times. So if wild Trevor Bauer comes out, probably going to be some ducks on the pond, as you like to say, once Mr. Montero comes up to bat.
Yep, right in that same price range. I really like Yasmani Grandal at Texas against Giovanni Gallardo tonight for $3,000. And then a handful of cheaper guys that look pretty good to me. $2,500 Jonathan Lucroy's been hitting leadoff fairly frequently. Guess Edinson Volquez tonight. Not a great matchup, but $2,500 for him at hitter-friendly Miller Park is pretty nice considering his lineup spot. And then at $2,400, as you and I agree, better to get him against a lefty than a righty, especially a tough righty like Arrieta. But Yan Gomes does pack some punch, making him a decent GPP play at $2,400 if you can get into one.
Yeah, and a guy fresh off injury, 3 games since returning, home run and a double in that span. Travis d'Arnaud at $3,000 against Mark Burley. Pretty much the ultimate contact pitcher right now. This guy's striking out no batters. So he's throwing the ball up there, waiting for you to hit it, hoping you don't hit it hard. And the only way that d'Arnaud hits the ball is hard. So I like him as an option tonight.
Yep, and he's been getting a favorable lineup spot since getting activated from the disabled list as well.
Yeah, which is definitely something you want to target with your catchers. Give yourself a little bit of an edge, an extra at-bat or two tonight as well. First base, obviously you love Anthony Rizzo. He's hitting everyone right now. He gets Wrigley Field, of course. I'll target him against pretty much anyone at Wrigley Field. And another guy, despite it being a night game, Miguel Cabrera, $4,800, I think is an awesome tournament option. He's starting to hit the ball well. Either 2 or 3 hits in 4 of his last 5 games, including a couple home runs in that span. Gets the rookie John Moscott. Good luck tonight against Miguel Cabrera and some of these power hitters. Fortunately for Moscott, this one is in Detroit and not in Cincinnati, or else this one could get ugly pretty quick.
Yeah, speaking of Cincinnati, Joey Votto always looks pretty good at 4,400, but there's and Albert Pujols is on some kind of tear. He's facing Robbie Ray tonight, $4,000 for him, but there are a number of sub $4,000 first basemen that I like. The position's deep. I mean, it's one of the more offensive friendly positions in the game, so that shouldn't come as a surprise, but tonight it feels especially good. You get $3,900 Freddie Freeman against Rick Porcello, who struggles mightily with left-handed batters. You get Prince Fielder at $3,600. It's a steal against Carlos Frias at home. Brandon Belt looks decent against Walker if Messi Walker happens to show up tonight. $3,600. $3,400 Adrian Gonzalez, another bat at Texas. He's on the other side of things facing Giovanni Gallardo, and I like him. And then $3,200 Eric Hosmer at hitter-friendly Miller Park against Kyle Loesch, who's no great shakes against, well, anyone. So I like Hosmer at $3,200 if you're looking for a little bit of salary relief. And then I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't point out the very popular and understandably so $2,500 David Ortiz against Williams Perez tonight. Going to be a popular means of salary relief, and understandably so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the word that we used earlier to describe Kyle Loesch was not quite as kind as that. So definitely a guy that we're going to be picking on here quite a bit. And, yeah, I mean, I'm on all those guys. Of course, you can look at Chris Davis in tournaments. He's at home against Aaron Harang. And outside of that, I mean, not a lot of guys you love. I always like Leandro Alonso. More often than not, he hasn't been paying off his salary. You wish it was under 3K, but I mean, he's the guy he's a good hitter. So he's a guy that I like if he gets a good lineup spot. That's like maybe part of like a mini stack, something like that tonight in that matchup. All right, second base. Top options seem pretty pricey today. Not in love with any of them. Kipnis gets a tough matchup. Dozier gets an average matchup against John Lackey, but is on the road. It's not a lefty, so I'm not paying his price tag that's jacked up right now. If Altuve's back, I don't mind him at 3,400, but I think I'd rather go with someone else at 3,400. Dustin Pedroia against Williams Perez. If I'm going to be paying here, I think that Pedroia is the guy I'm going to go with.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I really don't like the price points for the second baseman today either. If you're not using Tanaka, D. Gordon at 32 isn't a bad play. Obviously, if he gets down, he's a stolen base threat, but at that same price point, I really like Colton Wong leading off against Trevor May at home. $3,200, really good price for him. Does offer some upside at that price, so I'm a big fan of Wong tonight. And then dipping down a little bit cheaper, I'm looking at $2,600 Ben Zobrist against the erratic Tyson Ross, and Jimmy Paredes, $2,500 at home against righty Aaron Harang. Has typically hit second against right-handed pitching, so a similar lineup spot against Harang at home would be pretty nice for $2,500.
Yeah, and then I've got a pair of $2,800 guys for you here. Logan Forsythe gets a lefty, a solid lefty in Gio Gonzalez, but you got to consider him. And then I don't know how I overlooked this guy earlier when I was looking, but Jace Peterson against Rick Porcello. You already mentioned how bad he is against left-handed pitching or left-handed batters. He's going to be a popular play, though, Peterson, because last night all he did was get 3 hits, a double, a home run, 3 runs scored, a stolen base, had a monster game. So his ownership's going to be really high, but I think he's a fine cash game play tonight. I feel like coming off that big game, his ownership in GPP is probably going to be a lot higher than you'd like it to be.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, third base. Obviously, all these top guys options. You get Todd Frazier against Anibal Sanchez, who is either dominant or gives up a ton of home runs. Chris Bryant, kind of same situation with Trevor Bauer. When he's wild, he's really bad. And then there's a guy right below them that you like in GPP. So who you got there?
Yeah, Nolan Arenado gets a lefty. Obviously, Keuchel's my favorite cash games pick at pitcher, but in GPPs where I don't use him, grabbing Arenado and a forthcoming teammate makes sense against the lefty. Arenado crushes lefties. It is a hitter-friendly venue. It is a homer-friendly venue at Minute Maid Park, so definitely some merit to using him in GPPs. $3,700 Matt Carpenter, rock solid against righties, always a solid option. At $3,700, good price point. But the guy that I really like in both GPPs and cash games, I'm a big fan of Manny Machado at $3,400. Actually owns a reverse platoon split for his career, so he's better against righties than lefties. Aaron Harang doesn't exactly wilt against right-handed batters, but he doesn't tie them up either. He's more average than anything. So I'll take an average pitcher against Machado, who's a well above average hitter against right-handed pitching. And another GPP play, and a guy that I think is going to have some ownership because he just hits tape measure shots. But Joey Gallo at $3,200 gets Carlos Frias. The book on him is pretty simple. You want to throw him breaking balls and try and get him to chase out of the zone. Does have a big strikeout rate. Unfortunately, Carlos Frias doesn't have the repertoire to beat him with. According to Fangraphs PitchFX data, he's throwing 85% four-seam fastballs or cutters. So if he's going to be pumping in fastballs, I like Gallo's odds of turning one around and putting in the seats.
Yeah, it's going to get pumped back out the other way just as fast. Definitely a great stat there. That's going to help some people out for sure. And we got to mention Evan Longoria. He gets a lefty tonight. Yep. It's Gio Gonzalez, but $3,000 way too cheap for him against seemingly any lefty, if you ask me. I'll throw out Brock Holt at $2,700. Been batting up and near the top of the order, second a lot. A cash game play. He's not a guy with a lot of power, not much upside, but you like him. And then 2 guys down in the 2.2K range, a.k.a. minimum salary. Louis Valbuena is $2,300 against Chad Bettis. 14 homers on the season. You don't look at his batting average. You don't care about his batting average. All you need is for him to turn on a mistake and send number 15 into the seats tonight. And I think he's in a fine spot for that. And then also Yunel Escobar. You ask me, he doesn't belong being a 3-hitter, but he is a 3-hole hitter, right ahead of Bryce Harper, assuming he's back tonight. A Nationals lineup that could definitely do some damage tonight against Rasmo Ramirez. So I think Yunel Escobar is a steal at that price too.
Yeah, and just $100 more, you get Pablo Sandoval, who's really heating up of late, $2,300. Gets Williams Perez, a rookie who just is not going to overwhelm hitters. So really some very nice cheap salary relief options if you want to pay up in the outfield, or maybe at some of these other positions, maybe you want to pony up for Miguel Cabrera at first base. You're going to have to save money somewhere. So these minimum salary or near minimum salary third basemen are definitely a means of doing that.
Absolutely. When we move on to shortstop here, of course you're considering Troy Tulowitzki against the lefty. Damn good lefty in Dallas Keuchel, but of course he's in play. Jose Reyes, tough matchup as well, but he is on fire right now. He gets Thor, Noah Syndergaard tonight at 4,100. You consider him. Carlos Correa has been tearing the cover off the ball. $3,000. You're gonna certainly consider him as well. And then also I'll throw out Xander Bogaerts. I've been riding him recently, 3-hole, 5-hole. He's been having a nice lineup spot. $2,500 against the guy we just mentioned. First name, Williams Perez. I like Xander Bogaerts a lot tonight, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Tulo always in play. To me, I think he's a GPP option only, though. I'm not using him in cash games against Keuchel. Keuchel's too good. Price point's too steep. Especially when you can pay $2,000 less for my favorite option at shortstop tonight. Wilmer Flores, $2,400 against lefty Mark Burley. Flores hit fifth yesterday, hit cleanup on Friday when the Mets faced another left-handed pitcher. So I do like Flores a lot today, since I expect him to hit anywhere between 4 and 5 today in the lineup. And $2,400, you could certainly do a lot worse than chasing some power against a contact pitcher like Mark Burley.
Yeah, absolutely. Love Wilmer Flores as a cheap target with that power. As we move to the outfield, Bryce Harper, as we know, day-to-day, maybe he's back tonight, maybe he's not. Keep your eye on that. He's a great play tonight if he is back in the lineup. I'm sure he won't be back if he's not healthy. Giancarlo Stanton gets a really tough matchup. GPP only, but I mean, we know what kind of damage he's been doing recently. Same goes for Mike Trout, but an easier matchup for him. I think you and I are agreeing here that as far as the top option, Andrew McCutchen's the guy that I want to pay for, and I think you have the same thinking.
Yeah, $4,800 is a little cheaper than the other top options, and he is death on left-handed pitching. Gets a bright, promising one in Rodon, but one that's inconsistent. And if Rodon makes a mistake, whether it's 4 pitches out of the strike zone or 1 cookie in the strike zone, McCutchen's going to score points as a result. So I do like him quite a bit. Like Brett Gardner for $3,900 against Tom Kohler in Miami. Put one in the gap and run for days, Gardner, or steal some bases. I mean, he's certainly got the speed to do some wonderful things. As we mentioned, we do like Jake Arrieta, but $3,600 is far too cheap for Michael Brantley. Guy who puts the ball in play at a really high rate, good power and speed combination. Really like Brantley. I'll take Adam Jones for $3,600 at home against Aaron Harang. Does better work against lefties and righties, but is still a well above average hitter against right-handed pitching. Harang, not anything exceptional. A guy that we both like, and you called him could be GPP gold tonight, and I'm inclined to agree. Steven Souza against Gio Gonzalez at Tampa Bay. Huge power, really crushing left-handed pitching in his limited big league time. And Gio Gonzalez not incapable of giving up a home run every now and again. So I do like Souza. And then I'll give you a few cheap-ish options and very cheap options that I like. $3,200 Shin-Soo Choo, bit underpriced. That price tag is reflective of his overall body of work, which is weighted down heavily by what he doesn't do against left-handed pitching, and that's hit. Against righties, though, very good. Carlos Frias, very bad against left-handed batters, so I do like him. And then $2,200, you can get a number 3 hitter in Angel Pagan. Hard to argue with that. So I'm definitely a fan of being able to get a number 3 hitter for that price point. And $2,500 Lorenzo Cain, going back to his old stomping grounds, was hard to remember that he was a Brewer for a little bit, but he gets Kyle Loesch at a hitter-friendly venue, so I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm on all those guys as well. Whenever you can get a guy in a good spot at that type of price, you've got to take advantage of it. And then I'm looking hard at Colby Rasmus, the guy I love to play in tournaments against a righty, especially at home. $2,200, absolute minimum salary for him. I'm going to be slotting him in a ton of my lineups tonight. Love the upside in this matchup against Chad Bettis.
Yeah, good power chase if you ask me.
Absolutely. And with that, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.